Hello everybody, welcome back to the Dallas City of Learning Summer Soars program presented to you by the Writers Garret. I am Miss Erin, your instructor. Today we're working outside again, and while it's not essential to have watched and completed the nature journaling activity, it's a good idea that will help you with what you'll be doing today. Today you'll need your writer's book and a pencil, and don't forget to put on some sunblock and let an adult know where you're going before you go outside. Today, we're going to combine what we know about poetry with the inspiration of the outside world. For as long as there has been poetry, there has been nature poetry. Why? Because humans are hardwired to connect to the natural world. Even in busy cities, we keep houseplants and take care of pets. We visit city parks and plant flowers. For many people, it helps to try to make sense of humanity's place in the world by writing about what they have seen in nature. Let's take a moment and remember together about some poetic devices. Then take a look at a couple of examples of nature poetry. Repetition is the repeated use of a word or a phrase. Imagery is language used to create mental pictures and cause emotions in the reader. A metaphor compares two different unrelated things. A simile is a specific kind of metaphor that uses like or as to make its comparison. For example, if you're working hard, you might be as busy as a bee. And speaking of similes you might think of easily, let's not forget about cliches. Cliches are ideas or expressions in a piece of writing that were once meaningful but have been used so many times that they have lost their original effect. Nature writing is full of them, so as you're working, do your best to avoid them. Hurricane by Mary Oliver. It didn't behave like anything you had ever imagined. The wind tore at the leaves, the rain fell for days slant and hard, the back of the hand to everything. I watched the trees bow and their leaves fall and crawl back into the earth, as though that was that. This was one hurricane I lived through. The other one was a different sort and lasted longer. Then I felt my own leaves giving up and falling, the back of the hand to everything. But listen now to what happened to the actual trees. Toward the end of the summer, they pushed new leaves from their stubbed limbs. It was the wrong season, yes, but they couldn't stop. They looked like telephone poles and didn't care. And after the leaves came blossoms. For some things, there are no wrong seasons, which is what I dream of for me. This poem is a great example of how we can use the natural world as a way to understand and frame what happens in our lives. I see repetition, do you? That's right. It's in the line, the back of the hand to everything. I also see imagery, especially relating to the leaves which fall and crawl back into the earth, and then later, new leaves emerge from stubbed limbs. There is a simile. What is it? It's near the end of the poem. When Oliver says the tree limbs and their newly sprouting leaves look like telephone poles. There are two big metaphors in the poem. What are they? Hint, one is in the title. Yep, the actual hurricane is a metaphor for a personal struggle. The other metaphor compares the new tree growth to overcoming a personal obstacle. To the Tree Frogs Outside the Window by Naomi Shihab Nye. Tree frogs, we were born wrong. Why didn't we get a song like you? Something we could all sing together. In the big dark strumming our throats. All night, branches alive outside our screens. You paddled the long boat. Nothing could sink on a note like yours. I'd press myself against that twisty bark. Be part of the leaves. I'd shrink, stretch free of these heavy syllables, curving perfectly into chorus. Something we could all sing together. Yes. This short poem is loaded with images, from the big dark to pressing against that twisty bark to stretching free of these heavy syllables. Can you spot other images? There's also a big metaphor at the heart of the poem. Can you identify what it is? Nye uses the idea of singing together as a metaphor for connection to each other and the greater natural world. While it's not mentioned on every line, it informs the whole rest of the poem. Tarantula at Big Bend by Lisa Huffaker. The way you drum your fingers on a table, but silently and slowly, in a trance. That's how this being moved, dressed all in sable, as through the golden grasses it advanced. Its abdomen swelled like a velvet cushion, upon which rolled the shadow of a crown, borne forth by 8 dark footmen on a mission to coronate a sovereign whose renown shook terror through the stillness. I stepped back to make way for this dignified procession, and all the desert shuddered with me, racked with awe. Now let me make this strange confession. I cannot tell between my love and loathing when poison glides so smooth and in such clothing. This whole poem also works around a central metaphor. What 2 things is it comparing? Huffaker is comparing a tarantula with a deadly queen, and she uses other metaphors and lots of imagery to support it. Can you find the simile? It's in the 5th line, claiming the abdomen of the spider is like a velvet cushion. The poem also starts with a metaphor that is also great imagery. The legs of the spider are compared with drumming fingers on a table. The legs are also compared with 8 dark footmen, another great image. My favorite image metaphor combination is the spider's body being compared to the shadow of a crown. Now it's your turn. Go outside and observe. Using the tools you learned from the nature journaling activity, take notes and make sketches or diagrams of what you experience, and then create a poem using that material. A few good things to keep in mind when you're creating your poem are: say what matters to you, not what you think a poem is supposed to say. It doesn't have to rhyme or sound poetic. Go beyond description. Telling us about a bunch of flowers you saw is a good start, but we should end the poem understanding why you chose to tell us about them. Do they distract you from something that worries you? Do they remind you of the flowers that used to grow in your grandmother's garden? Give us a connection to hold on to. Consider the poetic possibilities. You could choose to speak from the point of view of a plant or animal you observe. You could speculate about where it came from or what will happen to it. You could use it as a jumping off point to talk about a memory or a person in your life. There are many ways to write a poem. Get creative. And we're back. I hope it wasn't too hot out there. On my nature walk today, I passed by the same crepe myrtle trees that I wrote about in my nature journal, and they inspired a poem. Little spider crawling up my arm, where did you come from? Overgrown grass tickling my legs, leading me to the most beautiful crepe myrtle trees, reminding me of my favorite myrtle, the myrtle that loved me. Sitting on your porch, eating candy from a brown paper bag, a card every year on my birthday, a hug every Sunday after church. Watching the crepe myrtles swing and sway to the rhythm of the wind takes me back to you. Watching the grass bend under my feet, I see you in the yard. I love you. I miss you. My favorite myrtle. What kind of poem did your nature walk inspire? I hope you enjoyed your time outside today and that it was inspiring. Thanks so much for joining me. See you next time.